There is a man sitting in a parked car outside his own house. The engine is off. The headlights are off. It is 9:47 p.m., and he has been home technically for 11 minutes. His wife thinks he is still stuck in traffic. His kids think he is still at work. He is 40 feet from his front door, and he is crying so hard his shoulders are shaking, one hand pressed flat against his sternum like he is trying to hold something inside his chest from coming out through his skin. In about 90 seconds, he will stop. He will check the mirror. He will breathe out slowly through his mouth 4 or 5 times. He will walk inside and ask his son how soccer practice went, and his voice will not shake even slightly. Nobody taught him to do this. He didn't learn it from a book or a therapist or a wise older relative who sat him down one day. He built this system the way a person builds a callus, and slowly, invisibly in response to repeated pressure, until one day it was just there, fully formed, and he could no longer remember a version of himself that didn't have it. To understand why a car becomes the only place certain people allow themselves to fall apart, you have to stop looking at the car. The car is not the subject. The car is the only door that was left unlocked. Start with the basic architecture of a man's emotional world, especially a man raised inside the conventional script of masculinity that most Western men over 30 absorbed before they were old enough to question it. That script had very specific rules about where sadness was permitted to exist. Not never. That's the part people get wrong. The rule was never that emotion couldn't happen. The rule was that emotion couldn't be witnessed. A boy who cried at school was teased. A boy who cried in front of his father was met, more often than not, with a version of discomfort that read to a child as disappointment. A teenager who cried in front of friends risked a wound that took longer to heal than whatever caused the tears in the first place. So the emotion didn't disappear. Emotions don't disappear, they're not negotiable in that way. But the location of the emotion changed. It got rerouted. It went underground, looking for somewhere private enough to surface. This is where the car becomes psychologically extraordinary, and almost nobody talks about why. A car is one of the only enclosed, fully private spaces a modern man occupies on a daily basis that nobody else can casually enter. His office has people walking past the glass. His house has a wife who reads his face the moment he opens the door, a daughter who can tell something is wrong from the sound of his footsteps in the hallway. Even his own bathroom has someone who might knock. But a car, moving or parked with the doors locked, is something different. It is a body-sized chamber of total visual isolation, windows that look out without anyone looking in, assuming you angle your head down. A psychologist would call this an environment of low social surveillance, a space where the felt presence of being watched, judged, or needing to perform drops close to zero. And here's the layer that explains the timing. It's almost never at the start of the drive. It's near the end. Pull up the data on when men report crying alone in cars, and the pattern is consistent. It happens in the final minutes before arriving somewhere, or in the minutes right after leaving somewhere difficult. The hospital parking lot, the driveway, the space outside a job that is slowly grinding him down. This timing is not random. It is the nervous system finding the last available exit ramp before a performance has to begin, or right after a performance has just ended. Picture a man leaving a visit with his father, who has dementia now and didn't recognize him for the 2nd time this month. He holds it together in the hallway. He holds it together saying goodbye to the nurse. He holds it together walking to the parking lot, gets in, closes the door, and the second that door clicks shut, something in his chest simply lets go, because his nervous system has just received the only safety signal it actually trusts. No one can see me now. This is what researchers studying emotional suppression call the private release pattern. Suppression is not the absence of feeling. It is the postponement of feeling, and postponed feeling does not vanish, it pressurizes. The body keeps precise physiological track of unexpressed emotion, elevated cortisol, tightened intercostal muscles, a held breath that becomes habitual. Crying is not weakness leaking through a crack. Crying is the nervous system's pressure valve finally opening, because it has, for the first time in hours, found a context it has been taught is safe enough to use it in. And this is the part that should genuinely change how you see this. Most people assume a man who cries only in his car is suppressing, because he is closed off, cold, emotionally stunted. The opposite is usually true. The men who do this most intensely are very often the most emotionally responsible people in their household. They are the ones who decided, somewhere along the way, that someone needs to be the stable one, that if the kids see their father break down, the house loses its floor, that if the wife sees the full weight he's carrying, she'll carry it too, and he doesn't want that for her. This isn't avoidance. It's a form of load-bearing. He has appointed himself the structural beam of the family, and structural beams are not supposed to visibly bend, even when they are bending constantly, privately, every single day. There's a deeper history underneath this too, one that goes back further than any one man's childhood. For generations, particularly across the mid-20th century and the decades that followed, the entire emotional economy around manhood was built on the premise of composure as competence. A man who could not control his face was, by the unspoken logic of that era, a man who could not be trusted to control anything. A job, a household, a crisis. That belief didn't stay in the past. It got handed down the same way grip strength gets handed down at a handshake, wordlessly through proximity, through watching a father's jaw stay locked at a funeral. Now overlay that inherited belief onto a modern life that is, frankly, more emotionally demanding than almost any generation before it. Today's men are expected to be present fathers, attentive partners, financially reliable, professionally competitive, and emotionally available, all simultaneously, often without the communities of other men that used to absorb some of that weight. The emotional labor hasn't decreased. The outlets have. Friendships have thinned. Extended family has scattered. Therapy still carries stigma in enough rooms that many men quietly avoid it. So the emotion still needs somewhere to go, and increasingly, the only space left that meets the criteria, private, enclosed, temporary, escapable, is a 15-minute commute. There's also something specific happening biologically that makes the car uniquely suited for this. The car combines motion, low-grade sensory monotony, and forward visual focus. 3 conditions that happen to lower the brain's defensive vigilance. You're not facing anyone. Your eyes are fixed ahead. The engine hum and tire noise create a soft auditory wash that masks the sound of your own breathing breaking. It is, almost accidentally, one of the most physiologically permissive environments for emotional release that exists in ordinary daily life. Some psychologists believe this is part of why long drives have always been associated with confession, with difficult phone calls, with the kind of thinking people say they can only do on the road. The car was never just a tool for transportation. It became, by accident of design, a mobile confessional with nobody on the other side of the glass. But here is the question that sits underneath all of this, the one that deserves more attention than it gets. What does it mean that the safest place a man has found to feel something is a machine, alone with the engine off, 40 feet from the people he loves most? It is not a sign that something is broken in him. It's evidence of how much he is protecting the people inside that house. But protection that requires permanent invisibility has a cost, even when it doesn't look like one from the outside. The marriage that never sees the weight he's carrying eventually starts solving a different, easier problem than the real one. The children grow up believing their father simply doesn't feel things the way their mother does, when the truth is closer to the opposite. He feels everything, just somewhere they will never witness it. The man in the driveway will go inside in about 40 seconds. He will ask about soccer practice. Nobody in that house will ever know what just happened 40 feet from their door, in a parked car, in the dark, with the engine off. The question worth sitting with isn't whether he should feel less. It's whether the people he loves most are the only ones he's decided can never see how much he actually carries, and what it would take, even once, to let the door of that car stay open a little longer than the driveway.